Hello guys. What happens when a god demands justice, but the truth is a weapon aimed at his own heart? This is not a case of who, but why, and the answer will cost more than a life. The air in 221B Baker Street tasted of ozone and scorched marble. Rain, thick as blood, lashed against the windows, each drop hissing on the supernaturally hot glass. Before Sherlock Holmes stood a man wreathed in living lightning, his beard a storm cloud, his eyes chips of judgment. This was not a client. This was a force of nature wearing a bespoke suit that barely contained the thunder thrumming beneath the fabric. "They tell me you find things, Mr. Holmes," Zeus rumbled, his voice the sound of mountains grinding together. "One of my sons lies dead in a Mayfair alley, murdered, on your squalid little world." He tossed a golden drachma onto the writing desk. It did not clink. It chimed with a note of pure power that made the fillings in Holmes's teeth ache. His name was Lycomedes. He was favored. Holmes ignored the coin. His gaze was fixed on the burn mark seared into the Persian rug where the god had first manifested. A perfect circle, edged with ash. A point of entry, not of arrival. The detective catalogued the details with ruthless efficiency. The client's rage was a performance, a tool of intimidation. The true motive lay beneath. You are the sky and the thunder. You rule from a throne of absolute authority. "Why come to me, my brother?" Zeus spat, the word cracking like a whip. "Hades. He has always coveted what is mine. My sons, my power, my light. This act reeks of his Stygian touch, his pathetic, shadowy jealousy. But I require proof, irrefutable proof that even a creature of the underworld cannot deny before the Pantheon. I want his guilt laid bare, Mr. Holmes. I want you to hand me the stone that I will use to crush him." He leaned forward, the smell of ozone intensifying until it burned the nostrils. "Find it, or I will unmake this city to find it myself." The stakes were clear. This was not about justice. It was about forging a weapon for a divine civil war. The investigation began not in London's grimy alleys, but in the sterile, silent morgue where the body of Lycomedes lay. He was a perfect specimen, even in death. Golden hair, skin like polished alabaster, muscles sculpted by ambrosia. But the cause of death was brutally mortal. A single, precise wound to the heart, inflicted by a blade of some unknown, obsidian-like material. Shards of it remained in the tissue, cold to the touch, absorbing the light. "Stygian iron," a voice murmured from the doorway. He was tall, gaunt, dressed in black that seemed to drink the morgue's fluorescent hum. His face was a mask of placid sorrow, but his eyes held the ancient, weary calm of one who has seen empires turn to dust. "Hades." He glided to the table, his presence chilling the room by a dozen degrees. "My brother bellows my name, I assume. He always did mistake noise for certainty." "The evidence points to your realm," Holmes stated, holding up a shard with his tweezers. "The weapon is of the underworld." "So is the stone in your ring, Mr. Holmes," Hades countered, his gaze sharp. "Does its origin make you a creature of the earth? Stygian iron can be stolen, traded, gifted. It is a tool, nothing more. Its wielder gives it purpose." He looked at the dead demigod, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. Pity or calculation? Zeus's sons are legion. They are arrogant, careless, they make enemies. Not just among my kind, but among yours. Lycomedes was no exception. He moved through your world like a tempest, taking what he wanted, leaving ruin behind. You offer an alternative theory? That this was a human act? "I offer a logical one," Hades said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Zeus is a god of passion, not precision. He sees a rival and assumes a motive. You, Mr. Holmes, are a man of reason. You see a puzzle. Look past the obvious suspect. Ask yourself not who benefits from this boy's death, but who benefits from my being blamed for it." He turned, his form starting to fade into the shadows pooling in the corners of the room. "My brother's rage is a storm without a rudder. Be careful it does not drown you along with his enemies." His words were a seed of doubt planted in the fertile ground of the detective's methodology. Zeus wanted a culprit. Hades suggested a conspiracy. The truth, Holmes suspected, was far more dangerous than either of them imagined. His inquiry shifted from the divine to the mortal. He began to retrace Lycomedes' steps through London's elite circles. The demigod had been a whirlwind of charm and cruelty, leaving a trail of broken hearts, bankrupted rivals, and whispers of violence. He was his father's son. One name surfaced repeatedly, Alistair Finch, a shipping magnate whose empire had crumbled after a disastrous deal with Lycomedes. The man had been ruined, his daughter seduced and abandoned. He had motive enough for 1,000 murders. But how could a mortal kill a demigod? Holmes found Finch in a crumbling manner, a ghost haunting the wreckage of his life. He was a broken man, but his eyes held a core of cold, hard fury. On his desk, amidst scattered papers and unpaid bills, was a book. An ancient, leather-bound tome on forgotten rituals. And beside it, a small, black-feathered fetish. "He took everything from me, Mr. Holmes," Finch rasped, his voice thin and dry. "Everything. I prayed to any god who would listen. I offered my wealth, my life, my soul for a moment of vengeance." "And who answered?" Holmes asked, his eyes locked on the fetish. "Not a god of the sky or the sea," Finch whispered, a strange, triumphant smile twisting his lips. A goddess of the crossroads, of bargains, of whispers in the dark, she gave me the means. A blade of shadow, a sliver of night to pierce a heart full of stolen sunlight. Hecate, a chthonic deity beholden neither to Olympus nor the underworld. A being of pure transactional magic. She had armed the mortal, not out of malice or alliance, but simply because the price was met. But something felt wrong to Holmes. The narrative was too clean. A grieving father, a vengeful goddess. It was a perfect, self-contained tragedy. Zeus would not care. He had his proof of a chthonic conspiracy, a blade forged in darkness. He could spin this tale to implicate his brother, using Hecate as the link. Finch was just a pawn, and Hades' warning echoed in his mind. Who benefits from me being blamed? The final piece of evidence came not from a witness, but from the victim himself. Back in the morgue, Holmes re-examined Lycomedes' body. The wound was precise, but there was something else. A faint discoloration around the entry point, almost invisible. A specific telltale sign of a rare poison derived from the nectar of the asphodel meadows. A poison that did not kill, but rendered its victim paralyzed, helpless. A poison that grew only in one place, the fields of the underworld. The blade did not kill Lycomedes. It was merely theatrical flourish. He was immobilized first. The Stygian iron was a prop, designed to point the finger of blame directly at Hades. Finch thought he was the killer, the empowered avenger, but he was only the final actor in a play written by someone else. The puzzle pieces snapped into place, revealing a picture of breathtaking betrayal. Holmes requested a final audience, not with Zeus, but with both brothers. They met him on the rain-slicked roof of Scotland Yard, the London sky a canvas of bruised purple and angry orange. "I have found your proof," Holmes announced, the wind whipping at his coat. Lycomedes was not killed by a Stygian blade, he was paralyzed by a toxin from the underworld and then stabbed. The blade was misdirection. Zeus's eyes narrowed. So Hades is guilty, he simply used a mortal puppet. No, the detective said, turning his gaze to the Lord of the Underworld. The poison was a key. It could only have been acquired by someone with free access to his realm, someone he trusted implicitly. He paused, letting the weight of the accusation settle. But the plan itself, the sheer audacity of framing a king among gods, required a mind of unparalleled cunning and arrogance. A mind that would sacrifice a son for a strategic advantage. The air crackled. The lightning in Zeus's eyes flared. "What are you implying, mortal?" "This was never about your son's death," Holmes stated, his voice cutting through the rising wind. "It was about consolidating power, about removing your last significant rival. You needed a reason to move against Hades, an unassailable casus belli, so you created one." He looked at Hades. "Your queen, Persephone. She despises her gilded cage, she provided the poison. The perfect, untraceable betrayal from within your own house." Then he turned back to the king of Olympus, his face a mask of incandescent fury. "And you, Zeus, you orchestrated it all. You found a broken mortal, gave him a script of vengeance, and provided him with a weapon you knew would point directly at your brother. You sacrificed your own child, a favored son you called him. Favored for what? For this final, silent act of service." The sky exploded. A bolt of pure lightning slammed into the rooftop inches from his feet, cracking the stone. "You dare accuse me," Zeus bellowed, his form swelling with power, the storm incarnate. Holmes did not flinch. "You asked for the truth. There it is. Your son was a pawn. Finch was a pawn. I was a pawn. All to give you the justification you needed to launch a war you've always wanted." Hades stood silent, his face unreadable but for the profound glacial coldness in his eyes. He now understood. He had not been framed by an enemy, but by a brother, aided by his own wife. The betrayal was absolute. "You have your proof, Zeus," Holmes said calmly, raising his voice over the tempest. "But it is not the proof you wanted. The stone I have handed you is not for crushing your brother, it is a mirror, and it shows a monster." For a moment, something broke in the God King's eyes. Not guilt, not remorse, but the raw, terrible agony of being seen, of being understood. His grand, divine tragedy was reduced to a squalid, pathetic murder plot by a mortal's relentless logic. He did not kill the detective. It would have been an admission of guilt. He simply vanished, taking his storm with him. The unnatural rain ceased, leaving behind a city glistening under a broken sky. Hades remained. "You have made an enemy of the most powerful being in existence. Mr. Phil Bonsimer plot being in existence. Mr. Phil B.E. Tonsimerd." Holmes. "I have stated the facts." "For a man of reason," the god of the dead said, a sliver of something akin to respect in his voice, "you have a remarkable capacity for inciting chaos. You have not prevented a war. You have merely changed its nature. It will be a cold war now, a war of secrets and whispers. And you are at its center." He offered no thanks, no reward. Just a statement of fact before dissolving into the shadows, leaving the detective alone on the rooftop. The victory belonged to Holmes. The puzzle was solved. But London was no safer. The heavens were now ruled by a king exposed as a filicidal tyrant, and the underworld was in the hands of a god whose trust had been shattered. Justice had not been served. Instead, the gods had simply been given new, sharper knives to use against each other, a testament to a mortal's discovery that the most terrifying monster is the one who believes his actions are justified. The cost of truth is not always freedom. Sometimes it is simply a clearer view of the cage. Think about that the next time you look for a simple answer. And if you enjoyed The Descent, a like, share, and subscribe is greatly appreciated. For more mind-bending stories where logic collides with the impossible, check out my channel. There's a lot more waiting to blow your mind.